Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DCEU Daily. Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter at MoviesTVMad to continue this and many other conversations. But first, it's over to Paul Cherie. Is that how you say his name?
One thing that I did want to, I know you loathe the Snyder Cut discussion, although we had a little talk before the podcast because I went to a place recently and heard some things that I can't really talk about yet. But we saw that Zack Snyder thanked the New York Comic Con folks that really made a big push to have a presence for Snyder Cut at New York Comic Con, and we've talked about that at length on this podcast, beat a dead horse on it. Yeah. And I will say that in the last week, I've had a little bit of I don't want to say change of heart per se, because I've always known, or that there is a cut that exists. But I've found out, when you learn a few new things, kind of find out that, there's more than just rabid fan base support for it. So did kind of change my perspective on that. And we'll have a lot more to say about it later. But unfortunately, I can't divulge much more than that. But I will say that there are absolutely there's some psychopaths out there that are in the Snyder Cut fan base, but I think that the people that are doing the good work, I think, should continue doing the good work, and that's all I'll say about that. So there you have it.
Well, okay then.
Chris does not want to talk about it. That is totally cool, but I did want to at least mention it. I'm actually just very, very excited to discuss all of that stuff. And I look forward to doing so. So stick around, follow the podcast.
So from that segment, you can...
Now that was posted on Chris Wong Svensson's edition of the Ping Pong Flicks yesterday. Thanks, Chris, for that. You know I always love giving you a plug. You're a great guy and you do a great job. Now, the reason I wanted for you to listen to that, and for me not just to quote what he said, because I think it's important to listen to his wording and his the way he tones the dialogue. Now, he's been talking about this, Paul, for quite a while now, for at least about a week. He went somewhere. I think he went on the set of Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Is that what it's called? Or whatever it's called, right? It's a Netflix kind of zombie show. It's like a zombie heist, right? An Ocean's 11 for zombies, right? Sounds really exciting. Can't wait to see that next year, out next winter. Really exciting. But so he says that the good people doing the good work should keep up the good fight. Because he's heard some things, and he's saying he hasn't had a change of heart, but he has heard some things that have made him look at things slightly different, and he's looking forward to being able to talk about that. He's throwing a lot of hints out there. I also have this unearthed kind of distrust of bloggers. He's quite a good blogger. He says a lot of good things. He covers many films, all films. He works for JoeBlow.com. I don't know if he's the owner and founder of it, but he's certainly... I don't know anyone else who's on kind of there and talks about it. It's mainly him. But it is interesting what he's had to say. Do I think this means he knows that the Snyder Cut is going to happen? No, I don't believe that. He's heard some things, and he seems to... I think he knows elements of what's in the Snyder Cut. Maybe Zack dropped some other hints that he hasn't dropped to us on Vero. But don't get your hopes up with this element. This is good. This is great to hear that he's heard some things, but he can't talk about it right now. I would absolutely love it. Paul says, yeah, I've heard it's coming out, blah, blah, blah. Be patient, and it's going to happen. But nobody else is talking along these terms, and to me, it's a bit odd. So as exciting as what Paul has to say is, I don't want any of you or any of us to get our hopes up. We've had our hopes up for so long now, and for it to come to no avail. So I think it's important that it's good to have hope, and as Paul says, keep up the good fight, and that's brilliant. But the Snyder Cut is kind of a red hot potato to talk about now. It gets you attention. I mean, I've been doing it for over a year now on this channel, but some people don't have the right idea in their heart and are just doing it because it's a talking point within the film community to talk about the Snyder Cut, and it's a fascinating subject, and it's a very interesting subject to talk about. I've never known a situation like this in film. I've known situations to be secretive and people not to discuss them and no one to know what actually happened behind the scenes. But what's insane about this situation is that we all know what happened. We all know what they did to Zack. We all know about what Joss Whedon did. I think it's insane that it's so publicly well known what happened, how they sacked Zack, how they brought in Joss Whedon, how they reshot the film, how they rewrote elements of the film and reshot elements of the film. I just think it's crazy how we all know what happened. And the studio are not even denying it because there's too many people who know it. I think Zack Snyder's been very tactical to make sure people knew what happened. He wanted that. He got his people to make sure that his fans and the public knew. And he's dropped things all the time. And he's never denied the existence of the Snyder Cut because there was always a Snyder Cut. Look, there's one thing we always knew, and this is boring now. We knew he completed production of this film. How do we know that? Because it was out in the public consumption. We knew he'd finished it. We knew he'd wrapped the film. So we knew that he actually shot his version of Justice League. What we never knew was it edited? Was there music on it? Was there CGI? Was all the post-production done? That was the kind of confusion we didn't know about. And kind of understandable that most people thought that it's not a completed film, but if Zack was allowed to release the film, he could go back and edit it, do post, and make it fit for audiences to see. Now, I spoke about a rumour the other day from We've Got This Covered, a site I don't really trust, but they do bring up some interesting talking points. And they said that they've heard that he's actually completed a cut of his film. Now, what that means, I don't know. If he's just edited it together for the studio to check out, or is there music? I don't think there's music and complete kind of VFX and post, but I certainly think that he's edited a version for WB to see. I think he's done this via their request. I think this is an exclusive request from Anne Sarnoff herself, and I think so. This is going to last for quite a while yet. We're not going to know anything, and this is why maybe Paul does know that Anne Sarnoff requested an edit of Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, because that's what I'm hearing as well. But that doesn't mean they're going to release it. Decisions still have to be made. But if it's true that Anne did request for Zack to complete an edit so she could see the film and make her final decision, it means that she's probably pretty sure that she wants to do this, that she knows this is right. Why is it so important to see this film? Because this is the completion of a man's vision. And that's very important, you know. And for those of us, and there are many of us around the world who were invested in Man of Steel, who were invested in Batman v Superman, we want to see this. We don't want that Justice League movie in our collection. I don't want it, but I'm not going to get rid of it until I get the real Justice League, the Snyder Cut. So I've said to you for quite a few days now, I believe we will see the Snyder Cut. I believe 2020 is the year. We won't have to wait 20, 26 years like we had to do with the Donner Cut. And the Donner Cut isn't even really his final vision because he didn't finish the film ultimately, which is sad. It was great we saw a version of that film, but really it wasn't a complete version, not really. And they even had to have kind of test footage from Christopher Reeve's casting call as well on there. So that was sad. I mean, that's a different conversation for another time. I'm going to have to do a video. And isn't it ironic that the Salkind sacked Donner, like Warner Brothers, Kevin Sugihara, sacked Zack Snyder. And I mean, it's even crazier to sack Richard Donner than it was Zack Snyder, because Richard Donner had made a successful film that critics and the audiences loved. There wasn't even an issue. The issue was with the producers and the director. And I'll say this again, I'll say this a billion times, and I know I'm changing the subject here, but it's all DC film. And we love talking about DC film. Richard Donner and the Sorkinds were both to blame. They should have put up with each other and they should have continued making movies, because basically Tom Mankiewicz and Richard Donner would have come up with a great Superman 2, a much better Superman 3 than we got, and definitely a much more superior Superman 4 than we got. So it's a shame. It's a shame, and this keeps on happening, and it's insane, isn't it? You can't even blame Warner Brothers for what happened to Donner, but you can certainly blame Warner Brothers, and especially Kevin Sugihara, for what happened with Zack Snyder. Because if they didn't want Zack after Batman v Superman, they should have said as soon as he was going into production, stop, we don't want you to do anything, we don't trust you. And it's funny, isn't it? Because they kept on getting him to kind of change his scripts because they didn't like them. And all they had to say to him, even at that early stage when they were doing the scripting, look, Zack, we just don't think that you and us see DC films the right way. At least they could have brought in Joss Whedon to do his own thing. And I think people still would have been unfair to Joss, and I think people wouldn't have given him a fair crack of the whip, but at least he would have been making his own movie. So the whole thing is insane. As I say, it's the most unique, craziest saga I've ever heard. But be positive. That is great from Paul Shuri, or however you say his name. But yes, be confident that the Snyder Cut is coming. Now, after I saw the test screening for Joker, still haven't seen the theatrical version yet. I was going to go yesterday, but I couldn't. I wasn't too well. But one of the questions I asked myself after I saw the film was, is Arthur Fleck an evil person? Now, I think one of the problems with the outpouring of outrage for this movie, and I kind of understand it to a point, is that it's not black and white. You can't say he's evil or he's good. He's a very sick, he's a very disturbed man. He has got issues, mental issues. And when you first see this character, despite everything he's going through, he's trying to fit into society. He's trying to make his dreams come true. Now, for the film's detractors who try and simplify this by a man who takes his frustrations out in the world because he can't make people laugh, he can't make his dreams come true, they and I and you know that's total bullshit. That's not the situation here. That's not the reason. I mean, if you look at the Murray Franklin portion when he plays Arthur's video, and Arthur says, people said this would never happen. People laughed and they're not laughing anymore. And Murray Franklin goes, you got that right, pal. And it's great what Joaquin does with that face expression. From a proud smile, it drops. And you know he's starting to crack. Because Murray takes something very vital away from him then. And that's hope. And if you lose hope, and I'm not just talking hope for that moment, for that element of his dream, but hope totally, that starts to hammer away at you. And this is a man suffering with contusions to his head from his mother's boyfriend, and which has started this whole problem with his mental health. This is something many men and many women around the world suffer every day. This is why this is a very important movie. A very important movie that a lot of people are trying to criticize because it doesn't fit within their remit of how they see the world. So I do understand that people feel there is elements of this film that could be perceived to be dangerous. I understand that. But the message it's sending is so more important than that. And ultimately, I don't see how this is a film that can inspire hate and violence. I think this is a film that inspires people to think twice about the world they live in and how they treat people. I think that's why it's so important. And so if asking if Arthur is good or evil, he's neither. Arthur is a very disturbed man who's trying his best despite all his problems. And that's got to be respected. And I think a lot of people suffering with mental health do the same. They try so hard to fit into this world that's poison to them in a way. It's poison to them and it's going to bring out the worst in them. But they try their best. Arthur is trying his best. But when they take his meds away from him, he can't. He can't do it anymore. So he breaks down. And, we saw what happens within the film. And I think someone said to me, "This is an amazing film." It is an amazing film, but there are always people who will see things that are not there. I mean, the Trump accusation is just ridiculous. That guy, what is that channel called? No Bullshit, tried to say, because he's a right winger, he was trying to say that Todd Phillips is a right winger, that the Joker is a right wing movie. Well, no, actually, let me tell you something, because this is a film that has not just commentary about mental health, but the withdrawal of funding for mental health, the withdrawal of funding for people in a city, which means these people are struggling, they're starving, they're living in poverty. Now, what side of the political argument always withdraws funding and says everyone's got to take care of themselves? It's the right. And this is what this film is saying. So never think this is a right-wing movie. Never think that this is, and that's not what's going on here. And even with CNN talking about Trump, they're trying to make it a left and right argument. This film has nothing to do with the right. This film has nothing to do with the left. This film has nothing to do with politics. It's about decency. And this film shows the lack of decency within our governments, whether it's in 1981, 2001, or 2019. That's the message. And that certainly isn't on the side of the right, because the right are cruel and they are callous and they are for the wealthy and the powerful. And that's what this film is trying to say. So never make that mistake. No, Arthur Fleck isn't an evil man. He's a very, very unhealthy man up here, and he's really trying his best. And so that element you can... So people talk about, are people going to be looking up to the Joker, inspired by the Joker? No, because once he becomes that character, he disgusts you. And that's what even Todd Phillips said. So it's obvious that this wasn't Todd Phillips' aim, to make people look up to the Joker. The Joker is what happens to Arthur once he's totally broken and he cannot fight his illness. Because mental health illness is an illness, right? Mental health instability is an illness. And a lot of people don't see it like that. You can't control it. It's difficult. Even with tablets. Tablets make you feel you're like on a cloud. You're not yourself when you're on those tablets. And so that's another situation. But at least when he's on the medication, he's trying his best. I think he's kind of some people find him creepy, but I actually think he's kind of a likable guy. He's like a child, really, when he's on those meds. He just wants to fulfill what he thinks is his destiny and his dream of making people laugh, being a successful comedian. And when that's taken away from him, and when the pills are taken away from him, so this is a story of a very, very ill man who needs support, but no one's there to support him. And this, as I say, this is a pivotal story. And as I've also said about this, is what's amazing about this film is he is the Joker that I've read in the comics, which I think is amazing. So not only is there bags of commentary in this film, this is not a film disguised as trying to tell you, mental health is bad, or, taking away, withdrawing funds is, and it's not a disguise, it's true. The commentary in this film is true. Now, whether you decide not to believe it, whether you decide not to like this film is another thing. Now, it's pretty obvious that people on the extreme left have tried to destroy this film. We even heard that the song that the Joker dances to is Gary Glitter's, a convicted paedophile. Now, of course, this is a poor choice of song. I can't defend that. And I absolutely hope he's not getting royalties for it. I do. But here's the thing. Maybe Todd Phillips doesn't know even who he is. I mean, he's American. So really, maybe he genuinely doesn't know who Gary Glitter is. Maybe he does. And if he does, that should never have happened. There's no question about that. But the point is that these people have been looking for something to bring the film down on. It's not going to happen. They failed. They failed their narrative to destroy a film that has its heart in the right place. And for me, it totally amazes me. It totally amazes me why you'd want to bring this film down, purely because it's about a white man and not a woman. And, these kind of attitudes are so bad. And you go onto Twitter all day. It does mess with my mental health. Of course it does. When you're constantly hearing your gender whacked and whacked and whacked. We're pure evil, we're this, we're that. We're in a male-dominated society. We're back, it's all day. And let me just tell you this. I hear, actually, it's really funny because South Park have got a character called Strong Woman, which I think is hilarious. South Park always get their criticism of society spot on, don't they? But I said this on my Twitter and on my Instagram, actually. I said, a strong woman doesn't have to say she's a strong woman. And I know a lot of strong women. A strong woman is a strong woman by her actions, by going out there, travelling the world, working, supporting her children. The strongest of women, of course, are the young women living in council estates, bringing up children on their own, with no help and no support. These are the strong women. The strong women are not Hollywood actors and producers who repeat themselves every 5 minutes. I'm a strong woman. Saying you're a strong woman doesn't make you a strong woman. Why am I talking about this on here? Because one thing has something to do with the other. And ironies against ironies. All these SJWs who hate the Joker movie, guess who composed the beautiful music for this film? A woman. A woman who's not just any old composer. She's one of the best composers in the world. And Todd Phillips brought her to this film, right? This film is very representational in its casting. There are people of colour in this film. Now, the accusation from CNN, of course, has been that this film uses them in the wrong way. I don't know how you use people and what you do, but there's something very important here. When we try and accuse a creative of something that's not real, just to destroy a film, we have to ask ourselves, you have to ask yourselves as journalists, are you journalists or are you politicians trying to push a political agenda onto a film that's not actually political?